And this is just a random question. I don't know if you have an answer to it. Have you noticed, is there one breast that seems to perform better?
Absolutely.
Which one?
It is typically in a right-handed person, the left breast.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Is that a known fact?
Yeah.
Wow.
Who knew, right? IBCLC's new.
Okay, that's right. I thought that was just going to be like, you'd have no idea, or you'd just say, well.
You're working with a trained professional here.
Gotcha.
Come on.
So why is that?
Now the why. That's always the tricky
Okay.
question. I would say because many women, parents, will find, that's a call out to the LGBTQ community when I say
Okay.
parent.
Okay.
I am totally cognizant that there are chest feeders out there
Yeah.
who need their day in the sun. What was I saying?
You were talking about the sides.
Oh, you've got a free hand. You're holding your baby. You've got a free hand to do whatever you need to do. Most people, when it comes to positioning a baby, if they're right-handed, find it just a little bit more comfortable on the left side. There's also a thought that because the baby can hear the heartbeat teensy bit better on the left side, that they prefer the left side. But that's why we have two breasts, and that's why we always say,
try both.
use both. You do not want to be Quasimodo. You want to have a dual system going, just like we have two eyes, just like we have two ears. It helps the baby going back and forth with its muscular development on each side of its body, its inner ear development, and its vision. It's very important to go back and forth and not just nurse on one side. Wow, I am so glad you asked me that question. I have not thought about that question in a long time.
They usually say, one breast is bigger than the other. And so I was thinking, that might be the case with the milk too, so.
Oh, very frequently it's the case.
Yeah.
I had a woman of a different faith tell me in her faith they were always supposed to start with the right breast. And I I just thought that was so interesting. It's like,
Who decided that back in the day? No,
Yeah,
I'm not
it's where
knocking it.
culturals
I'm
are
just
good.
saying.
You know what? It may be a result of that maybe the left breast will produce a little bit more. And so you want to start with the right to make sure it's in the game too. I don't know.
Absolutely, yeah. And you got to respect it and you got to work with it.
Well, if you go downstream far or upstream far enough, whichever direction you need to go, you will find a historical, ancient reason why it would benefit the population.
How long does it take for the breast to refill? You said, okay, well then they might be ready in 15 minutes. Is that enough time for it to refill? Because
Now you're really asking me some awesome questions.
Okay.
Breasts function much like a kidney. They're always
producing.
always working on
Okay.
it. So I tell mamas, you know what? You have a really full bladder and you void. 10 minutes later, you could probably get more urine out. If you want somebody who's very left brain, and we are in this culture, you can say it'll take usually an hour before you'll have another ounce produced in one breast or the other.
And is that plenty for feeding?
Absolutely. It's
Okay.
Baby is controlling the flow. If baby has unobstructed time at the breast, baby will get enough. Whether the baby wants to eat every half hour for 2 hours straight and then sleep for 3.5 hours,
It knows.
it knows.
Yeah.
There was a question I remember. What do you want new parents to know about
Yeah.
their babies? Their babies are little tiny human beings that have got a strong biological drive to survive. They are subtle, but they communicate. You watch and you learn and you pay attention to their little subtle cues and you get to know a lot about a baby. They have a lot going on.
Just see my
And
sister go through the whole process. I couldn't believe it.
I hope it worked out okay for her.
Oh
in
yeah,
the way that she
absolutely. It
liked.
was funny because during the time I had not done anything breastfeeding related or anything like that. She was breastfeeding I think up until he turned 3. I think the day he turned 3, she stopped. And I was living with her at the time. I had just come back from Peru and we were actually living. It was the most grueling night. A lot of times they
She
say
cut him off cold turkey, huh?
it was just done, no more. I don't know if there was a little bit of a weaning process before that.
He was on solids. That is, by definition, part of the weaning process.
He was not having it. He was not happy. I couldn't sleep. It was like when he wanted to, it was like really, really late. And I remember thinking, oh man, maybe you should just keep going for a little while. Like honestly.
Every woman gets to decide. Anybody who's got breasts gets to decide what they want to do with their bodies. Yeah, when it's that hard, maybe you need to take a step back and say, let's come up with some new strategies. Let's go through this just a little slower. Because a 3-year-old, you've got plenty of language skills to discuss it with the child. Most breastfeeders want to wean at night. Everybody wants sleep, right? Lots of women have said, oh, well, from when the sun goes down to when the sun comes up, the nanas are going to be sleeping. And so,
No more ninny.
no more nanas.
Okay.
And so there are all kinds of strategies. Some babies, that last breastfeeding is like first thing in the morning, like your shot of coffee, right? You figure out what's an alternative to the shot. Maybe it's Pop-Tarts. Maybe it's whatever they like, that is going to be even more exciting than snuggling in that moment with your mommy and having the nurses. And you want your child to develop appropriately. You want them to move on. You want them to be potty trained when they're able. You don't want an 8-year-old who's not potty trained for God's sake.
yeah.
So the weaning process is part of breastfeeding process. You want to be knowledgeable about that too. Typically, you don't want to go cold turkey because if you do, you set yourself up for plugged ducts, potential breast infection, and just plain old discomfort. You want your body to know that ultimate weaning is on the horizon too.
First week of breastfeeding, what's normal, what's not normal? I hear a lot of people quit because of pain.
Yes,
right?
Sore nipples. You
Yeah,
bet.
sore nipples.
Absolutely.
What to expect during that first week?
First week, that's when you're really trying to get things off to a good start. That's when things can, they can feel very bumpy. Even if things are going well, it usually feels pretty bumpy anyway because it's brand new. But you want a baby who is pooping and peeing based on the number of days old it is.
Yeah.
Right? You want a baby who has at least some periods throughout the day where they are content and they're sleeping well. Then you may contrast that with what is also normal, and that's a baby who's like, I'm not leaving this breast no matter what you do.
Yeah.
I'm a permatatch. There are all kinds of words for it. Marathon feeding, permatatch, feeding frenzy. I'm not crazy about that one. It sounds like a dysfunctional term. Frenzy,
like they're out of control.
So both are normal. Tender nipples, very normal. If you were outside sunbathing and your lips got a little chapped or a little sunburned, they're gonna heal very quickly. Same thing with those nipples.
So what's the best way to expedite that?
Work on the latch. Make sure that the latch is really good. 1 millimeter up, down, sideways, 1 millimeter change is enough to make all the world of a difference.
That I can't even, millimeter is so tiny.
Is so tiny. So are babies' mouths.
Yeah.
We always call them micro adjustments. Sometimes mommies are like, their babies are fussy at the breast and they're bouncing them and they're trying to latch them. And I'm like, be still, be calm.
Yeah.
You're trying to make your baby nurse in an earthquake.
I feel like that's one of the biggest things that I saw people dropping off because of.
It is the number one reason.
Yeah.
Too
It was
sore.
painful. They didn't like it.
And I say, remember when you fell off your bicycle and you skinned your knee? That wasn't a picnic either. But you got back on and you were more careful the second time or whatever, You can use medical grade lanolin.
What's that?
Lanolin, like from sheep, the little oils from sheep. Well, there's a product out there that has used medical grade lanolin, purified it. So even people technically who are allergic to wool should not have any problems using it. Another new kid on the block is 100% coconut oil. Coconut oil is coming on strong as a nice emollient to keep
for everything, apparently. Karen wants to know the difference between a normal lump in a breast and a cancerous lump in a breast and when to seek help.
When the breast is making milk, it gets all kind of lumpy bumpy. Think about a cluster of grapes. And some will get a little more swollen than others, and some will drain better than others. So if you have a persistent lump that does not fluctuate, it can be just a plugged duct. And you need to kind of work to resolve that by hot compresses, frequent nursing. Some people have found pointing the baby's nose in the direction of where that lump is, that can help drain it better, using gravity, leaning over, using like a vibrating toothbrush or something else that vibrates to do like over the lump. Yeah, that should break it up and resolve it. If it really never changes and is very persistent, if the breast milk is tinged with brown blood potentially or red blood and there is no other explanation for it, like the latch is fine, it hasn't been hurting, those are things that you just, you might need to go check out. And there's some other things that can cause lumps in there, like galactocele that, it's like an encapsulation.
Yeah. Like a little pocket or something.
That can be sort of persistent. Most of the time they resolve on their own, sometimes, But
and it's filled with?
I'll say fluid. How about
fluid,
that?
okay. And this is a big one. This was also a huge question that a lot of moms have, and I understand why. Drinking and breastfeeding. Kate from Houston, Texas wants to know about
I want to have my long necks.
Breastfeeding and drinking. You have a night on the town, put back a few Zimas, a couple pulls off 40, something like that. Whatever it is that you do. I've heard of pump and dump. I've heard of all sorts of theories on this. What's the general consensus on that?
If you are sober enough to drive, you're sober enough to drink. Sorry, you're sober enough to... Let me start again. All right. If you're sober enough to drive, you are sober enough to breastfeed. First of all, not a ton of alcohol is being passed into the baby anyway.
There's a lot of people that think they're sober enough to drive.
Oh, and they're not. Okay, well, I'm talking about legal.
Yeah.
Right? Legal limits for a responsible person, okay? Back in the 50s, and I don't know how we all survived, moms were given cases of wine so that at that 3 o'clock feeding, you could drink wine and nurse your baby. Somehow or another, most people survived that. Their mothers drinking, smoking, doing all kinds of things. Okay. But no, it's not good. It's not great. If you want to have something or whatever, then, your baby's not a parole officer. And you can occasionally, maybe up to a couple of times a week, drink, have a glass of wine, have a beer, have a Marg, Cosmo, whatever. And then you can stage it in such a way. You feed your baby, put your baby to bed. Now it's time. I got a couple hours to relax a little. And then that's when you have your drink. And by the time baby wakes up for the next feeding, most of it's metabolized out of your system anyway.
The other thing I was thinking, you drink it too much, you shouldn't be taking care of your baby anyway.
That is an outstanding point. Who's taking care of the baby when you're getting loaded?
Yeah, exactly. So what is pump and dump?
Pump and dump is that your breasts are going to make milk whether you're on chemotherapy or whether you are on other medications that are truly incompatible with breastfeeding.
Okay.
All right? Not good for your baby. In order to maintain your supply, you've got to express the milk. If there's stuff in it that's not good for the baby, then you got to just get rid of it. So pump and dump. Maintain your supply, but don't feed it to the baby until whatever it is out of your system.
How do you know how long that takes? Is that the half-life of the medication? Is that the...
I will say this. More medications than you would think are very compatible with breastfeeding. And everybody's just, with the thalidomide scare way back when, everybody is super cautious. I would say if you have any concerns about the medications you're taking, how compatible they are with your breastfeeding, no matter what your provider has said, don't dump. All right? Pump, but don't dump. Because that breast milk might be completely fine. Contact an IBCLC. Go online to Thomas Hale's infant risk website.
I saw there was a website that its database was really easy to read, totally laid out. You could find all the compatible medications, and I was pretty impressed by that.
Yes, exactly. And thank heavens, there's a lot of garbage out there online, but there's a lot of really good information too. Of course, the devil is in the details. But, there are a lot of things that are just fine to continue taking while you are breastfeeding.
But the pump and dump would be to what? Pump once and then dump the once and then...
You would pump for the length of time that the medication was in your milk at levels that are detectable at a negative level for your baby.
How do you know when that is? It has already been established?
Half-lives, molecular weight.
Not everyone knows half-lives of medications and stuff like that. When it would actually be out of the breast milk. Is there a safe amount of times to pump and a safe quantity?
It is all about the medication.
It's all about the medication. So is that on the database that you can look up? Okay.
Many times, They're designed for healthcare professionals, so it's a little tricky sometimes for a mom to get
That's what I mean, because when you say the word half-life, I mean...
Who knows what that means? You need to do it in conjunction with a healthcare professional. If you get a healthcare professional who says, well, it's probably safe for you to just pump and dump, that's somebody who would not sound to me like they're really willing to go that extra mile, do the research and find out.
What can make breastfeeding easier? And that's a very broad question.
Watching other women breastfeed.
Like YouTube or...
That can help. You bet. That can help. There are a lot of moms groups out there. And when you're pregnant, it's really helpful to go. You see a variety of ages in these moms groups, a variety of positions. All that just helps to demystify it. Take a breastfeeding class if nothing else, if you can. This is really cool. And I've worked with people who have a lot of younger siblings. They're like, I don't know. I was off in high school. I never watched my mom breastfeed my 3-year-old sister. They always are so much more comfortable. They just take to it like that.
Really?
Even though they didn't, zero
Observe
right
it,
in. They were just around it. It was normal. It's kind of like if somebody showed you this coffee cup and you'd never seen a coffee cup before. Like, what do I do with it? How do I drink it? It's got two holes. Which one do I use? Easy one or the big one? And it is that way very specifically with breastfeeding. I'll ask people who are struggling to hold their baby first few times, and I'll say, they're like, I'm just afraid I'm going to break the baby. Babies are flippy and floppy. And I ask them, have you ever held another person's baby? No. All right. Have you ever held a puppy or a kitten? No. I'm like, okay, I got to think of some other analogy that's going to help. And we learn a lot, not through didactic teaching. We learn a lot just moving through life. Be ready for it not to be super easy. It's something that is brand new for not only you, but your baby.
Baby's brand new.
The baby's brand new too. You've got to have support and you've got to have good information to go on.
Yeah, there's lots of groups out there.
There are. You kind of have to look around, try to find your tribe. You don't ask the sister-in-law who said, oh God, my nipples were killing me. You don't ask her, You ask the person who said, oh, I miss the days of breastfeeding. I loved it. Yeah, I had a little struggle in the beginning, but I got over it. You can too.